Hi everyone, I hope you're having a great day today. I'm Jessica, and today we're going to talk about the value of a schedule, and then we're going to move into if Master Books Curriculum is really enough. I'm going to be choosing someone at the end of the live video to receive 2,500 reward points, so jump on in, comment, say hi, that way I know you're here. First thing, as we discuss schedules, I want to note that each and every family has their own unique and individual style. So the way that you implement things in your home is probably going to look quite a bit different than it would look in my home. And that's great because you get to figure out the way that your family functions best. And regardless of the way that your home feels and your personality, and whatever way you choose to incorporate a schedule of some type can really be a great way to incorporate, to increase your child's independence, to increase their productivity, their creativity, and their confidence. A schedule really is just creating a structure to allow your child some safety. You're giving your child safety in order to know what they're expected to do and how to accomplish those things. Hi to everybody that's jumping on in. If you're here, comment so I know you're here. I'm going to pick somebody later on to win 2,500 reward points. I have notes so that way I can remember what I want to say. So if I keep looking down, that's what I'm looking at. So anyway, so a schedule really is creating structure for your child's day, and there's a lot of safety for children inside of that structure. By creating a schedule, we're helping our children develop good habits and behaviors that they're going to take into their life forever. So these are so helpful for them for their entire future. We get to model for them how to prioritize and pick from all the options that are in front of us every single day. Every morning when I get up, I get to decide how I'm going to start my day. I could start my day by reading my Bible. I could start my day by getting up, cooking breakfast, eating breakfast with my children. I could start my day by throwing a load of laundry in. I could start my day by exercising. There's lots of different options that I can pick from to start each and every day, and none of those things are bad things. So I have to look at all of the things that are asking for my attention, and I have to decide where do each of those things fit into my day. Because if we don't make intentional decisions, what happens is that at the end of the day we'll get here and we'll look back and we'll go, what happened today? What did I do? I'm not really sure what I accomplished. I feel like I wasted a day. And if we're not careful, we can look back over a month and say, I don't really know what I did this month. I could have done so many things, and I really kind of just threw it away. So that's really what a schedule brings to us. The schedule just pulls things together, and it helps us to stay focused on the things that we already decided were important. Schedules are only valuable for us if they work. So I want to go over a few different things that we should think about when we are thinking about schedules. The first thing we need to look at is we need to understand that everything in our life has value. Everything that we look at has some type of value. The best way to figure out what the actual value is for us is to know what our long-term goals are. What are our long-term goals for our children? What are our long-term goals for our family? When we have an idea of where we're going and where we want to get, then we can understand what the value is in something. So there's value to everything. And then the second thing that we need to understand is everything costs something. It doesn't necessarily mean it costs dollars, but everything costs us something. So we need to weigh and think about what is the cost of this thing that I'm contemplating adding to my schedule. And when we look at the value of it and we look at the cost of it, we need to decide which one is bigger. If the cost is less than the value, then it's worth adding. If the value is less than the cost, then it's not worth adding. That's when we have to use the word no, because there's a lot of things that are asking for our attention. There's a lot of opportunities that present themselves to us, but it doesn't mean that the cost is worth what the value is. So for instance, I'll use an example. Team sports. Team sports have a value. They can add a lot of value to our lives. There are a lot of great things that we can get out of team sports. The way that I decide if a team sport adds value to my life is I look at my end goal that I have. If those team sports match up with that end goal, then that's how I can decide what the value is. But after I've already decided the value, now I have to look at the cost. What is the cost of the team sports? Well, the cost would be, it could be monetary, what I'm actually spending money on, but it's going to be time. There's going to be time involved. There's going to be maybe time separated from the rest of the family. There's going to be drive time. There's a lot of things involved, and that is the cost of participating in the team sport. So for my family currently, team sports are not worth the cost. The value of the team sport is less for our long-term goals than the cost. Now, that's what we're currently at. Maybe next year that'll change. In the past, we've done some team sports, but this is why you're constantly evaluating your schedule, constantly evaluating the opportunities that arise and seeing what fits into what we have. Later on, I'm going to talk about, we do have certain things that we are incorporating because the value is greater than the cost that we are putting in. Okay, so the one thing is your value versus your cost. Whenever you're trying to put something into your schedule, make sure you're looking at that. The next thing is be flexible. Be flexible with your schedule, especially if you haven't really incorporated a schedule in the past and it's kind of new and you're trying to change things up. Be willing to be flexible with that. Try something out. If it doesn't work, understand, okay, we've got to adapt it a little bit. We've got to make some changes. There's a learning curve whenever we start something new. Another thing is seasons change. Just like I mentioned earlier, we've done team sports in the past. We're not doing team sports now. So as seasons change, things will change on your schedule. Don't be stuck to having the same exact schedule all the time. And then don't let one bad day throw you off. We all are going to have bad days. We're all going to have days where things don't go as expected, and don't let that throw you off. Make sure that you're, then going, okay, well, we messed up today, or we kind of fell off the bandwagon today, but we're going to try again tomorrow. So don't give up just because you have a bad day or a bad week or a bad month. You always have the ability to restart. And then make sure you give yourself some wiggle room. Don't schedule yourself so tight with things back to back to back. To me, if I have things back to back to back, that's telling me I'm not saying no enough. So make sure that you're saying no in the areas that you need to say no to. And then academically, stick to the basics until things are going smooth. Don't add in those extra electives until you have the basics smooth, things are going well, and then you can add in some of those extra things. Inside of your schedule, give your child a schedule, but give them freedom in that schedule. There's a structure that we can give to our children, but then we can use that structure to teach them valuable lessons. We can teach them time management. And so we want to use the schedule not to dictate necessarily every minute of everything that they're doing, but we want to use the schedule as a structure for them to give them safety and to help them learn how to incorporate what they're doing long term. So the way that I kind of help my kids to learn time management is the type of schedule that I use is a block schedule. Checking the comments, making sure that there's no questions. I use a block schedule in my house, and essentially what that is we have blocks of time throughout the day. So each block of the day has the high priority items listed in that block of time. And then any extra time that they have after those high priority list items are done, they can really do what they want to do. They have the freedom to do what they want to do. Specific things need to be done in certain blocks, but if they finish everything, now they can do what they choose to. Our schedule is printed out, put up on the wall in our schoolroom. That way they have easy access to see it whenever they want to see it. And by having a schedule posted that we follow each day, my kids don't need me to verbally prompt them for each activity of the day. Or I don't have to feel like I'm micromanaging everything that happens all day long. I do have to remind them to look at the schedule sometimes, but I'm not having an all-day dialogue with each child about everything that they have to accomplish. And then as they get older, the time management thing really kind of starts to kick in because there's a level of accountability involved. So if they have a 2-hour block of time and they have 3 or 4 things that need to be done in that 2-hour block of time, it's really up to them. If they want to wait for the last half hour, that's fine, because they are not held responsible for the things being done until the end of the time. Might not be the wisest decision though. And they might find that, oh, we're not getting done actually when we're supposed to get done because we put it off for too long. So I'm kind of giving my kids a little bit of flexibility in there. So I'm using the schedule to teach them how to manage their time. And then if we get to the end of the day and let's say their chores for the day didn't get done, I can refer to the schedule. I can say, well, what time were you supposed to do your chores? Okay, what were you doing at that time instead? Do you think that was a wise use of the time that you had? So we can more easily talk through what was going on throughout the day because we have a structure for how the day is supposed to function. Don't forget to comment and let me know that you're here so that way I can pick somebody to win 2,500 points at the end. I do want to give an example of a personal example that just happened last week of how a schedule can be so helpful. Last Friday, I was not feeling well and I slept until 11:30 in the morning. And then I stayed in my bed until mid-afternoon, early afternoon. My kids did not sleep until 11:30. They were not sick. They were up just like a normal, regular day. They were able to get up. They were able to start their day, eat breakfast, and even complete their schoolwork without me even getting out of bed. And now, of course, things that they needed help with or something like that, that was different. And so we did have to review things later on. But they were able to do a lot without me telling them exactly everything to do. I have clearly laid out the expectations for them on how a regular day goes in our house. And then they have been given the tools to meet those expectations. A schedule is simply one of those tools. It's not a magic formula. It doesn't change your children into, they do everything perfect. It's just a tool that we're using. And if you don't use it, it does you no good. So don't spend the time working on a schedule and then don't incorporate it. Make sure you're using it because it's a very powerful tool. I have to lead my kids by example. I have to follow a good schedule for myself. I have to be productive. I have to make good use of my time. And then I have to make sure that I'm not getting frustrated with them over things not getting accomplished, that I'm referring them back to the schedule saying, okay, well, what should you be doing right now? What was the agreement that you would be doing at this time? And when we have an open dialogue like this, as opposed to getting so frustrated because chores didn't get done, it's very helpful. Okay, let's see here. Desiree asked, do you schedule a break time in or do you have them just take a break after the top priority items are finished? They have times on their schedules where they have like playtime or outside time, free, they can do what they want to do. They do have those times scheduled in. But if they finish the important things in a block, then they also have free time until the next block would start. So it's really just fine. Like let's say they got their schoolwork done early and it's not time for the next thing. Now they can do whatever they want. They don't have to move to the next important thing for the day. each time period of the day has something different. Let's see here. So anyways, so that's, I have to make sure that when I give my kids these tools, that I'm helping them learn how to incorporate those tools. So I'm not going to talk about our full schedule. I'm not going to give you my whole daily schedule, but I will let you know what the school portion of our day looks like. So I have 4 kids in my house. I have a 4-year-old who's not school age yet, so he really just does some activities when he wants to, but he's not really on a schedule like the other ones with school. Then I have a 1st grader, a 4th grader, and a 5th grader. Our typical morning starts out with everyone getting up at 8 o'clock. Some of my kids are often already up at that time, but if anybody's still sleeping, that's the time that everybody's time to get up. We eat breakfast, get all their stuff ready for the day. They have until 9 o'clock. So they have from 8 to 9 to get anything they need to get done to start the day done. And then at 9 o'clock, they are expected to be sitting and doing their school. We have 9 to 11 blocked out for school. Then after that period, they eat their lunch. At 11 o'clock is lunchtime. And then we have a couple other things that we do after that. And then at 1 o'clock, we come back to the schoolroom and we'll finish up reviewing and checking anything that didn't get done previously. That's typically the time that I will review my oldest 2, their work. They typically do almost all their work from 9 to 11 independently. And then at the 1 o'clock time is when we will discuss anything that they had questions on. We'll review what they did. We'll go over any errors that they had or anything that they needed, more specific help with. My 1st grader typically gets done in that early morning block because his work doesn't take usually more than an hour. So I'll work with him, but that's usually all I'm doing in the morning, and I don't work with my older ones until the afternoon. And that's our school portion of the day. School doesn't usually take us more than 2 to 3 hours of the day, and I am typically only hands-on involved for about 2 hours of that. I'm checking the comments again, making sure I'm not missing any questions. So I'm usually only involved for about 2 hours of school per day on average. Obviously, there's days when things are a little bit different, but that's about what we're doing. And when we first came to Master Books, we came from a much more rigorous classroom style program. And at that time, I only actually had my 2 oldest that were school age, and our days were full with just 2 grade levels. The school day was usually not complete until 4 or 5 in the afternoon, and we really had done nothing else, just school books. And it was frustrating. I felt like I couldn't offer anything extra to my kids because we were so slammed with what appeared to be the core courses or the essential things that we had to do. And I wanted certain things for my kids. Like I wanted my kids to learn to cook. I wanted them to be able to play instruments, but I didn't have the time to teach them. I didn't have the time to take them somewhere to learn. I wanted them to be able to do all these different things, and there wasn't time for them to really develop artistic abilities. There wasn't time to let them just be kids and play because we were doing so much book work. So when I look at what we were previously doing compared to what we're doing now, it can be really easy to look at the differences in the loads and think, well, maybe we're not doing enough right now. How could we be doing so much before and now we're not doing that much? So, as far as time goes, so clearly it seems like logically my kids are missing out on something now. And although that does seem to make sense logically, the truth is that very often less is more when it comes to sitting down to do book work. Our kids don't only learn through books. They learn by participating in the world around them. This is where they get to discover their passions. And that's what our job is. Our job is to help our kids discover those passions. It's to cultivate the plan that God has for them. And that's something that I really, really love about Master Books. While we're working through our assignments, there's oftentimes when we are told to get up, get out of the chair, and apply what we're learning to the real world. So in those 2 to 3 hours of our school time, we are not always sitting in the chair. We're not always just doing book work. We're often getting up and we're doing something that takes the learning from the book and now applies it to their actual life. So we're following assignments, but we're not necessarily stuck in the book. And I know that if you're moving from one type of approach into this, you're coming from the public school setting where your kids were in school all day long and then they came home and did homework, or if you're coming from a classroom style approach where there's hours and hours and hours of work, it can be a little scary when you're thinking about switching, or when you've made the switch and you're going, oh no, did I make a mistake? And it can be even scary, especially scary if you have certain legal requirements, like if you have to pass standardized tests, right? So if you've made the switch this year and you're thinking, okay, at the end of the year, my kids have to take a standardized test, and how is it going to go when they're not doing school for 6 and 7 hours? Now we're only doing school for a couple hours a day. So you could be thinking, well, my kids are having more fun using Master Books, but are they meeting the standards that are expected for their age? And, you know, let's think long term. Are they going to do as well on the ACT or on the SAT for college entrance as they would have if they were in the school system, or if they were using a different homeschool curriculum? Those are legitimate concerns that parents have, and I totally understand them because it can be scary. So I'll kind of just talk about a little bit about my kids. Last year, I had my kids take standardized testing for the sole purpose of sharing the results in this group. By law, my kids don't have to take standardized tests, so I wouldn't typically have them do that. But I really wanted to show people, okay, we've been using Master Books, and these are the results that we got. So I really expected them to do well. I thought, you know, they're going to do good, and I know, being with them, that they are totally on par or above what I'm seeing some of their other peers at. So I'm not concerned about this at all. But I was honestly blown away by the results. Their results were much better than I even thought that they would be. And I don't really deal with, I'm blessed, and I don't really deal with a lot of naysayers and people attacking our decision to homeschool or our decision to use this curriculum. But if I was dealing with that, the results that I got could be, in my mind, used kind of as proof that, you know, Master Books is enough. What they're doing is enough. And it doesn't mean I have to show the person the results, but it gives you confidence when you understand, okay, they really are accomplishing what needs to be accomplished at their age. And the truth is that I know that they're excelling way beyond what a test can show. I see them day in and day out. I know the conversations that I have with them. I know the spiritual growth that's going on. I know their ability to communicate and how well that is being developed. And so a test can't show all of that, but there is some safety in the feeling of knowing, okay, well, even the standard that the school system sets, yes, they are meeting those standards. So I'm gonna post in the comments. I had grabbed the link to that post, so I just posted that. I grabbed the link to the post where I shared my kids' standardized testing results, and I just put that in the comments. So if you guys want to check those out, I shared those back in May, and really, they just blew me away. My kids, I did not expect that to happen. And like I said, I know that what I'm seeing in the day-to-day is way more important than that test is showing. But when you have to turn in a test to the state, I know that it can be a little bit overwhelming as a parent. So the other question that I brought up was long-term, you know, thinking down the road when we're looking at sending our kids off to college. And are they going to score well on their entrance exams? Our college is going to be interested in having my kid, as a student. And so I am not to the college level yet. I'm not to the point of sending my kids off to college, but we do have other families in this group that have done that. We have other families in this group that have used a lot of Master Books courses. Their kids have done well on the ACT or the SAT, and they have been actually sought after by colleges. They've done well with their college classes. So this has been a topic in the group in the past. So if that concerns you, I encourage you to use the search feature and look up some of the conversations that have happened about this. So whenever we are wondering if something in our life is enough, such as if you're wondering if the Master Books curriculum is enough, or if you're wondering if something is too much, the really important thing for us to do is to look back at that value and cost thing and look at our end goals. Is what we're doing helping us reach that end goal, or is it simply filler material? Is it just stuff that we're sticking in to fill the time? Ephesians 5:16 tells us that we're supposed to redeem the time because the days are evil. This verse is telling us that we are supposed to stop wasting our time. We are supposed to use every opportunity that we have for good. To redeem our time means to buy it back. We're supposed to buy our time back because we're going to lose it. There's nothing that we can do to hang on to it. So we either use it or we lose it. Those are our only options. Time is a valuable commodity that God has given us, and we have to work smarter with that time. Understand that every bit of time you spend on one thing is time that you're sacrificing for another thing. So every time I spend time on something, I could be using that same time to do something different. I get to decide which thing is more important to me. It goes back to the value versus cost idea. And the value of using Master Books curriculum with my children far outweighs the cost. And I'm not just talking about the dollar figure. I'm talking about the cost overall. I'm seeing results with using this curriculum that line up with the end goal God has given me. And so we are redeeming our time, as Ephesians says to, by making the best use of the minutes and the hours and the days and the months that we are spending using this curriculum. I talked earlier about how I wanted to incorporate some extracurricular things with my kids previously, but we were so slammed with all of the book work that we were doing previously that we didn't have time to do it. And I want to just preface this again by saying, if you are just starting out or if you're struggling with some of the basics and getting those incorporated, just stick to the basics. Don't try to add in a whole bunch of extras. But when you're solid with the basics and when you realize, okay, we're doing well and we have extra time, that's when you can start adding some things in, and that's what we've been able to do. So a few of the things that we've been able to incorporate since we've been exclusively using Master Books is, I said I wanted my kids to learn to cook, and that doesn't really take any fancy equipment or anything to teach our kids to cook. It just takes time. It takes bringing them into the kitchen. So now my kids are in the kitchen with me every single night. They're cooking. And yeah, it adds extra time to what I'm doing. Last night I had my 7-year-old in there cutting up meat with me. And so could I have done it faster than having him in there with me? Yes, I could have. But the cost, the time that I spent with him was worth the value that I was getting out of it. So that's something that we've been able to incorporate. And my oldest has even been able to start making some things on his own at this point. Sorry. Okay. I'm sorry. I'll blow you up another balloon afterwards, okay? I'll blow you up another balloon afterwards. Go up into the room, and I'll get you one in a little bit. Sorry, a balloon popped. um, Benjamin, please go back up into the room. I'll be with you in a minute. Okay, so that we've been able to incorporate some of these things that we haven't been able to before. Where now they're able to start learning how to cook. Now they are taking piano lessons. This is something that has been so important to me, to have, you know, my children learn music, and now we're able to incorporate that. They're in jiu-jitsu classes, and they're able to spend time on creative outlets of their choice. They're able to play. You know, I think sometimes we forget how important play is. You know, we think if they're, well, we're only doing school for 2 hours, and now what are they going to do with the rest of the day? They're going to play. And play is so, so important. I think in the American school-minded culture, we've minimized the importance of play once our kids reach kindergarten. It seems like we want our little ones to play, but then once they reach school age, now you have to sit still, you have to read, you have to listen, and pay attention. But there is not a trigger in a child that, you know, just all of a sudden they stop needing play once they turn the magical age of 5. They still need play. Play is such a powerful thing, and it teaches our children how to behave socially. It teaches them how to navigate emotions. It teaches them how to problem solve. It helps them helps them develop decision-making abilities. It helps them with their creativity. It helps with so many different areas. And Randy's been talking about creativity recently, and how important it is for our children, and to help us with them, you know, developing their creative abilities and not squashing those creative abilities. And often the books, they can squash creative abilities, and we have to be careful to not do that. One thing that creativity needs is creativity needs space. Space can be kind of scary, but that's where creativity thrives. We need space in our thoughts. You can't be creative when you're super overwhelmed, right? If you're anxious about things, if you're stressed about things, that's not the best place for creativity to work. So when our kids are anxious, when they're struggling, when they're really, you know, dealing with all of these stressful things, it's very hard for them to think creatively and process creatively. Another thing is we need physical space to be creative. That's a reason why going outside can spark such great creativity. There's a lot of space outside. So think about it like this. If you have a blank white piece of paper, it's just a blank space. It's space. That's what it is. And it remains blank space until someone's creativity meets that blank space. And then it can become anything. It can become whatever your creativity can make it become. But it takes space in order for that creativity to take place. And I think that this concept contributes to why many of the Master Books Curriculum courses, they work so well. If we use, I'll take language lessons for living education as an example. Most elementary language courses have a lot of different moving parts. You've got a book for spelling, and a book for writing, and a book for grammar. You've got all these different components all at work, and they're all teaching important parts of language arts. But language lessons for living education consolidates all of those things into one book. And it doesn't just take the individual lessons from all those books and stick them all together, and now your kid has 7 or 8 worksheets per day in one book. That doesn't make a difference. What it does is it pulls from all of these things and it puts it into one easy to manage lesson. And so now your child is not having to pull from all these different areas. And it's showing how language arts is really a cohesive thing. When I am speaking to someone, I don't access the spelling part of my brain and then the grammar part of my brain and then the vocabulary part of my brain, all in different parts. It's all one cohesive unit, which is helping me learn how to communicate more effectively. And that is something that language lessons does. It brings all of that together instead of separating it all out. And I personally have seen huge creative leaps in my children's work, even in their schoolwork, because they have less physically sitting in front of them, so there's more space, and then they also have less to mentally navigate. There's more space to process thoughts. And so I'll just go into this real quick. The less is more approach is such a great approach for our kids because it gives them some space. It gives them some room. But you can't ever forget that you are the teacher. So the curriculum is a tool, but you're still the one that's in charge of how to use that tool. You're still the one who's making the decisions. If you find that your child is struggling in a certain area, then you adapt the tool, you add to the tool, and you find out how to meet your child's need. So if you have a child who's working through math and you realize that they're really struggling with the 6 times tables, and those are causing some frustration for them, but the curriculum isn't having them work on 6 times tables today, that's okay. They can continue to work on the assignments that they have, but you are the one who's interacting with your child every day. You see where those struggles are at. So you can incorporate some other things to review those. You could go outside. You could play hopscotch. Instead of doing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you should do it like 6 skip counting, 6, 12, 18, 24. And you could do something like write brain flashcards. If that is something that works for you, you could try something else. You could put a skip counting poster up on the wall. You could play a game that involves math facts. You could do all kinds of different things to work on the thing that your child is, that individual item that your child is struggling with. Just because your child needs some additional support in one area, it doesn't negate the entire curriculum and it doesn't negate the entire method. It doesn't mean the method doesn't work. The method does work. It just means your child's human. And so what you're going to find is as we give our kids space, we will see certain strengths and weaknesses start to pop up. And when you see those strengths and weaknesses start to pop up, that's how you can fulfill your God-given role of training your children and finding exactly what it is that they need. And that's what keeps homeschooling exciting, because sometimes it can seem like, wouldn't it be nice if we just had every day go so smooth? But honestly, we would get kind of bored. I need that back and forth with my kids. We need that. We grow from each other through it. So it's really important that we have that process and that we are paying attention to what's going on in the period of time that we're spending on this. So when the long hours of books and when the stress of all of that is just removed, it helps me to see more clearly where my child needs support. And I can parent better in that situation because I can see sometimes we see something come out as an educational thing, like, you know, they're struggling in this area, but sometimes it could even be an emotional thing going on. And so having that space, giving my kids space, mental space, and just breathing room helps me to realize, okay, is this a heart issue that we need to deal with? Or is this something, you know, the times tables are really just difficult, and so we're going to work together on this. And it just gives me some clarity and understanding of how can I meet your needs. So anyways, that's really most of what I have to say. And I just want to say that it is such a blessing that God chose us. He chose me. He chose you. He picked us out as the carpenters, helping to form our children into the men and women of God that He planned from the beginning. And that is like such a huge blessing. And it kind of is overwhelming when you think about it that way, and you know how awesome that God chose us to do that. So I'm just going to check and make sure if I missed any questions that anybody had. And I'm going to pick somebody to win the 2,500 reward points. Okay, I don't see any comments. I mean, any questions. I mean, I don't see any questions. So hopefully, if I did miss a question that anybody had, feel free to ask, and I will come back and answer those. And the winner of the 2,500 reward points is Sherry Gibbs Atanasoff. I probably did not pronounce your last name correctly, but congratulations, Sherry. You win 2,500 reward points that will be added into your Master Books account. So have fun shopping. I hope that this was a blessing to you today, and it'll help you to decide what things are important, what things should make it onto your schedule, and to look at everything and look at the value, look at the cost, figure out what works for your family. And what works for your family is not necessarily going to be the exact same thing that works for me, and that's okay. We're all individuals. So anyway, thanks for joining me today. I hope you guys have a great rest of your day, and I'll talk to you later.